Hey, welcome to my leadership lunch. I hope you are well and blessed and encouraged. I wanted to just connect with you about so many things, but as we have continued to do this in the past, I've been kind of pouring into you for a while now about leadership and about determination, decisions, encouragement, so many different things that we are kind of drilling into. I want to let you know some things about my business as it kind of pertains to who you are and where you're developing. My goal and my hope is just to provide you with help. Everyone out there that is dealing with leadership and movement, we all need help in our businesses and our trajectories with the areas and places that we're stuck and with what we want to do next. We all need help. And that's really my goal, is just to provide you with an element of help for guidance of to what you want to become. That's really the authenticity of who I am and of what I do. So to do that, to accommodate that, I am going to be transforming this into a weekly podcast. Probably the beginning of September, I'm going to transition this, really brand it, and turn it into something to just provide some guidance and some help with for along the way. So I want to let you know that so that I can just kind of, include you, loop you in, maybe interview some of you. Because there's a world of people out there that just need what the insight that you have and that you've learned. That's what I'm learning of myself. And so I want to be able to provide that. Up to this point, we've been kind of navigating through this book, The 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth, by my mentor, John Maxwell. And today is no different. We're going to talk for just a few minutes today about the law of reflection. I think this idea is genius. In fact, I think all of us do this in kind of one way or another, and we kind of evaluate it, or we accommodate it on some platform that we may not actually know what we're doing. And I want to bring a kind of a why to what you may already be doing. If you're not doing this, I want to give you the ability to be able to start doing it or to begin integrating it into kind of your pattern and your process and your protocols and all those things. The way that I want to start this is by talking about transportation or driving. It's no surprise to you, or maybe I've told you this before, but my wife and I, we did kind of cut our teeth on career and leadership in Central America. Our first kind of career move was in missions, and so we were foreign missionaries for a time and spent some time in Costa Rica and then also in Mexico. I remember when I was a kid, I would go down to Mexico quite frequently to do missions. In fact, most every summer I was on some kind of somewhere. I was mostly in Mexico, but a couple of those times I was able to drive. When I first started going down there, I had my American driver's license, but I got to drive a little bit in Mexico, and I remember a couple times, just in the crazy ways that they do driving or roads down there, that I got caught on a one-way street in the wrong direction. Now, that's all well and good right up until someone else starts coming the other direction, right? Have you ever driven on a one-way street in the wrong direction? I did it right here in my hometown just a couple weeks back. Somebody, like, as soon as I turn on the street, somebody's there honking their horn, flashing their lights at me, and I'm painfully aware of the fact that I just made a mistake and I've got to recalculate how I'm going to get out of this, right? Because now you've just blocked traffic and all these different things along the way. Obviously, there's road signs and there's different things to kind of prevent you from doing these things. But sometimes you just aren't aware of those things, or, in your driving experience, you've been driving for 30, 40 years now, and it just becomes second nature to you. You don't even begin to think about what you do. It's just rote repetition, and you know how to do it, and you know what to be cognizant of and aware of, and you just do what you do. And then there's these moments where you just didn't pay attention to a few specific things, and now you've got to correct those moments. You're sure that after this, you won't make that mistake again, right up until you make that mistake again. But it's less likely that you're going to do that because you've learned from your mistakes. You've learned something. In our life and in our business, in our trajectory, in our velocity, and all the things, we've got to make those same decisions. We've got to be able to navigate through the complexities of what we do and be able to learn. And how do we learn? But by integrating this super important facet of your life, and it's just reflection, right? And so Maxwell calls this the law of reflection. I have a different language for it. I've been using it for a long time, years and years and years have I been doing this, and I don't call it the law of reflection. I call it something else. And I actually taught it to my team as kind of an automated principle that we would inject into our cycle to be able to evaluate the critical moments of everything we do. But it's the same principle. It's the law of reflection. It's about looking back over the period of time or the history of what we've just done to be able to analyze what have we learned, what did we do well, what have we accomplished, and where do we need to go from here to be able to execute a more dynamic or a more perfect product, to get a more beneficial outcome. Whatever the case may be, it necessitates reflection. And so a couple of the things that I want to kind of submit to you today to kind of coincide with that is this idea of just evaluation. I want to give you really 4 or 5 things here. And the first one is that you need to evaluate everything. Evaluation is just a really healthy assessment of everything that you do. On some levels, you should be assessing your day. At the end of every day, you should be able to have a moment or a few moments where you can reflect back on the elements of what comprised your day. How well did you do it? How well did you start? How well did you get up and get moving? And how did you accommodate the things that you were going to tackle? How did you prepare for those moments knowing that they would become? Did you do well with it, or did you totally fail at it? Give yourself an analysis of what you faced and what you could have done better, what you really killed it at, and what you should do differently. Those are the law. That's the law of reflection at work in a minute detail of like your daily output. The same thing is true for a month, a quarter. I know some people that spend an entire week of their year. At the end of every year, they analyze the whole year. And they spend time considering the conversations and the programs that they offered or they participated in, and the decisions that they made, and the bedrock elements of life that they have gone through, to be able to learn from where I've been, to be able to analyze where do I need to go next, and what are the decisions I need to be able to make this next year as we plan our trajectory and our outcomes and the desired things and the KPIs and the goals and all those different things that need to be integrated into our days. To analyze that, that's a critical moment. I would just encourage you, man, spend something like that. Do something like that. In my history, I would typically take 2 or 3 days, and I would go up to a cabin that's not far from me, and I would spend time just kind of analyzing where have I been, and then just also kind of putting some parameters on where I need to go next. And I was always surprised coming away from an experience like that, just the influx of momentum and just ingenuity I would get by spending that concentrated time with nobody else. No one else around. Is kind of minimal distractions. There is internet access there, because so you got to have that. But and maybe you don't. Maybe you just totally get to a spot of isolation. And I'll be honest with you, the first 24 hours of that will literally drive you crazy. You think you're losing your mind. And some people can't even handle it. They would give up early and leave because they can't handle the quiet. They can't handle the solitude. They can't handle the lack of movement. I remember on one of these trips for me, I felt like I had the longest day of my life because it was so empty, void of anything else going on. No agenda, no protocol, no anything. And yet I walked away from that experience getting what I felt like was an entire year's worth of content that I needed to be able to organize and articulate for my team, and to be able to take the church that I was leading at the time, to be able to take them into as to what was next. So some time to analyze and reflect and to learn. And that's really the second thing I want to give to you. You got to be willing to learn. It's pretty painfully aware that no one else is coming to take you higher in your process. This is the idea of self-discipline. So you've got to be able to ask the hard questions and be able to face your own hard answers. This is where we kind of get a little bit pansy on ourselves, and we kind of give ourselves a break when we don't need to be able to give ourselves a break. The world ain't giving you a break. we got to be able to suck it up a little bit and learn some things. Well, where are you going to learn from? There's 3 areas that I want to learn from. Number 1, learn from your past. That is crucial. Typically what's painfully aware in our world today, and you do this just as much as I do this, but we are insane about comparison. Constantly. This is the social media bug. You're constantly comparing yourself with what someone else does, with their broadcasted outcomes, and they're putting in front of you, hey, look what I did today, and aren't you proud of me that I closed this deal? I see that all the time. I kind of follow a lot of investors, and they're constantly like holding up this check. Here's my $45,000 check that I made from this deal. They're not telling you all the truth, but naturally you're going to analyze yourself and be like, oh my gosh, I didn't do that. And so we are our own worst critics. And so we get really, really insane with ourselves because we didn't provide the outcome that we thought we should provide for ourselves. And we're comparing ourselves, but we're not comparing ourselves. We're comparing ourselves in a very unhealthy manner. We're comparing ourselves with that guy, right? And his highlight reel. I frequently tell people, the clients that I work with, the businesses, the organizations, the corporations, all the things, I tell them the only place that you should be comparing yourself is with your previous self, with the person, the organization, the company, and the nonprofit, who you were yesterday, who you were last year. And as long as you are improving based on who you were yesterday, that is success. But we've got to be able to learn from our past. We've got to be able to face the hard truth of some of the mistakes that we've made, even of some of the failures that we've had, and recognize, I can do better. Note those things. I am an insane journaler. I write almost every day. I write something. I need that in my life. It's part of my daily startup process. And what I'm doing is I'm kind of calculating, what was my mindset yesterday? Is it improving today? Am I going to be stronger than I was tomorrow? And to be honest with you, I feel like this last year of my life has been the most transformative and developmental year I have ever had. And so I can look at my life and say, you know what? I am healthy. I am better than I ever have been before. So I've learned from my past. I can actually point to the reason why I believe that's true too, but another topic for another time. Learn from your past. Number 2, learn from others. Why would you not want to learn something from someone else? So investigate. Don't criticize. Don't ridicule. Don't judge, but learn. Learn from people as they begin to kind of put out in front of you, hey, this is what I've done, and this is what I've tried, and this is what I've benchmarked, and I grabbed this from someone else, and I put it into my life. And honestly, you should be able to grab that from them and be like, I'm going to put that in my life, right? The truth is that I love this phrase. This is never more true for me than it is right now. You don't know what you don't know. How are you to learn? You're going to learn from someone else. Where are you going to learn from someone else? Man, you're going to read some books. You're going to watch some YouTube stuff. YouTube University is a great place. You're going to put yourself in a position of just, I need to learn. Listen to people. You're going to ask questions. You're going to grow a little bit. And honestly, that's the third place that I want to say. You're going to learn through growth. Well, how do you grow? Read some books, podcasts, content somewhere. I got a quote for you. This is from the great Tony Robbins says this. This is captured in this book, The 15 Laws of Invaluable Growth, 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth by John Maxwell. Successful people ask better questions, and as a result, they get better answers. I've told my clients one of my favorite phrases right now is that something along the lines of the health of your future is dependent on the questions that you're willing to answer today. The success or the health of your future is dependent on the questions that you're willing to answer today. I ask a lot of very tough questions of my clients because no one else will ask them. In fact, they're not going to ask themselves. I'm not going to ask myself the tough question. It requires someone to come alongside of you and ask you a question that you're terrified. In fact, I send out this questionnaire quite frequently. We do this, probably once a quarter evaluation of yourself. And on the bottom of that questionnaire is this question: What question are you hoping I don't ask? Now, the next time we meet, you better believe I'm going to ask those questions. So I think there's this kind of a psychoanalysis that people do when they look at that and they're like, oh, no, Kevin's going to ask this question, so I better make this an easy one. What did you have for ice cream? What kind of ice cream is your favorite, right? That's what we're going to go with. What did you have for dinner last night? No. The toughest question, the one that you don't want me to ask you, that's what I'm going to go with, because it's going to press you and it's going to help you grow. And it's going to stretch you into an element, into an ability, into a place that you didn't think you were possible of going. But that's how you reflect, and that's how you learn. The way that I frame this, and I'm just going to kind of launch this out there, and I'll teach about it some other time. This is part of my keynote that I put out there for people to hire me to speak on. But I talk about Type Tuesday. That was my phrasing in the church world, was Type Tuesday. And that was our language towards reflecting on the weekend and recognizing the fact that you can do better. There's a way that you can improve your process, you can improve your product at every interaction, at every transaction, every instance of customer service and all those things. Why do you think that when you call a call center, there's that recording on every call? Just know you're being recorded. This, for quality control or whatever, this call is being recorded. That's what they're doing. They're analyzing, they're reflecting over how they handled the process. Did they encounter something that they've never encountered before? And how can we learn from that again? So my process was Type Tuesday. Every Tuesday, I would force my people to fill out a questionnaire that they were going to analyze and reflect on Tuesday based on the output of what we did on a Sunday. And so what would they do? They would answer these questions. What, was the product or was my area of service the best it could be? Was there anything I did that I should have done differently? Did I encounter a mistake or an instance that could have been handled better? One of my favorite questions was this: who are 3 people in my area that I should be thanking as a result of their work, of their service, of their output? That forces you to be able to be observant, aware of an instance that took place. What are some things that I'm thankful for? What are some things that we could learn from? All these things. You have to tailor it to your context and to your output, whatever your context is that would be appropriate for you to be able to analyze and reflect on, to be able to benchmark and learn. And then honestly, what you can do with these things is that you can not only use this as a self-improvement tool to be able to assess your own personality and your own self and your own output, but you can also use this in a company, in a corporation, to be able to analyze your company, your team, and to be able to help them improve and to be able to help them to process and to become better. You've got to have this. If you don't have this, man, you are falling behind. Why? Because naturally things atrophy. They get worse over time, not better. Nothing improves over time without effort. And so the longer we wait to analyze, the longer we wait to reflect, the worse it will become. And the more work that you will have to do to overhaul your process and to correct it, to fix it. Some of the language I use, for our Type Tuesday process was, we are going to dismantle our process every week, and we're going to inspect every part. I kind of likened it to like a NASCAR thing. And I used to be a NASCAR fan right up until they changed all the rules. And I was like, I don't really like this anymore. But man, I was kind of fanatical, man. I had gone to some races. I was following specific drivers and I knew all about their teams. I knew their stats. I knew all the stuff. And I love the process of like their debrief after the fact. They would kind of have this post-race debrief, and I can just imagine those conversations that would go down in their little race haulers and with their teams back in Charlotte, North Carolina, as they kind of analyzed every image and every video shot and every turn and every angle and every pit stop and even especially down to the race car itself. What are the tire pressures and what does the engine look like? And let's take the whole thing apart and does the oil smell bad? And what are the things that we could have done better and differently to make it more agile, more speed, more agility, more trajectory, more velocity, more all the things? What could have been better with the driver and how do we keep him healthier? And all those things are necessary to be able to improve, but you cannot improve unless you ask tough questions. What was that phrase again? Let me read it one more time. Successful people ask better questions, and as a result, they get better answers. That is reflection. And that is what you should be doing on a personal level, on a family level, on a team level, your business, over the last month, over the last week, over the last year. We need to reflect everywhere. And as we get better at reflection, we will get better results. We will get better trajectory. We will get better future based on our ability to reflect. So learn from this. Do something about it. So my question for you today is, what are you going to do? What's one thing that you can integrate from this conversation with us together today to be able to advance and move forward based on what you have learned and the outcome that you need and want to have in your world, in your business, in your life? Hey, thanks so much. I will see you soon.